And joining me right now is Democratic National Committee Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Debbie, good to see you. Welcome back.
You too, Maria. Thanks so much.
Big night, obviously. Your observation from the big victory last night from Senator Clinton.
Well, I think what we have here consistently, especially in the last several cycles, is voters coming out of these primary contests are indicating how enthusiastic and excited they are about voting for either one of our candidates, and that they are being asked, what do you think about what this primary has done for your enthusiasm? And they've been saying 7 out of 10 voters have said that they're enthusiastic about either one of our candidates. On the other side, for example, in Pennsylvania yesterday, exit polls showed that 58% of Republicans think that their primary has been divisive and destructive to their chances of eventually electing a Republican president, and with good reason, because it is chaotic on the other side. They're still scrounging around, really looking for the least worst option, which is how most voters on the Republican side made their choice yesterday. It's a pretty stark contrast.
Well, you know what, Debbie, I got to say, I'm just looking at this story right now, and obviously I meant Secretary Clinton, pardon me. This exclusive data that Breitbart is reporting, Democratic turnout collapses, down more than 4.5 million, nearly 20% in 2016 versus 2008. We're clearly seeing the numbers, Debbie, in terms of voter turnout way down, and Breitbart is saying it's down 20% since the last contested election. Why do you think voter turnout has dropped so much on the Democratic side?
Well, if you remember, in 2008, we had a multi-candidate field for a good long while until the end, and then, towards the end, it was just head-to-head between then Senators Clinton and Obama. Republicans have had 17 candidates and, double-digit candidates for quite some time. So we've had a pretty consistent race between two people for a long while, but the real indicator is that when asked about their level of enthusiasm and what the primary has done for that enthusiasm, voters have said they support and are excited about supporting either one of our candidates. And you can see in Wisconsin, in New York, and now in yesterday's primaries, Republican voters have said this primary has actually been destructive to our desire to come out and vote. And on top of that, we can see how chaotic it's been. They are still likely to head for a contested convention, and there is very little enthusiasm, because when you're going to the polls to vote for your least worst option, then that doesn't bode well for your chances of success in November.
Yeah. So I guess you think that in the general election, at the end of the day, you think they'll come out. They're going to come out, even though voter turnout is down right now. You think at some point, it's going to resonate, and they're going to be out for the general election. Then.
Of course,
yeah.
The dynamic in a primary is very different than the dynamic head-to-head in a general election. And look, there are going to be people motivated about their excitement for supporting our candidate, and let's make no mistake, presuming that the likely outcome is that Donald Trump is their nominee. He has so alienated large groups of voters that the Republicans themselves, Maria, in 2012, if you remember in their autopsy, said that they had to bring back into the fold or attract to their candidate, or they would never win another presidential election. And so they haven't done anything. On the contrary, to fix the problems they acknowledged they had after 2012, they've made them worse.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary, actually. I want to get your take on what was said last night, because in a victory speech last night, Donald Trump suggested that Bernie Sanders should run as an independent. Listen to this.
The Democrats have treated Bernie very badly, and frankly, I think he should run as an independent.
What do you think's behind that, Congresswoman? I mean, has the Democratic Party treated Senator Sanders unfairly? First answer that. And then what about Trump's notion that he should run as an independent?
No, and gosh, I really appreciate Donald Trump's advice. That's so nice of him to give us that feedback. What I'm really looking forward to is that when we get to the end of this primary nominating contest, we are going to do as we have always done. Come back together, unify, and focus on what both of our candidates understand is absolutely critical, and that is making sure we can move our country forward, build on the economic progress we've had, and if you ask, and they have been repeatedly asked, either one of our candidates, they both very clearly say they understand what's at stake in this election and that either one of them would support the other. And I'll note that Bernie Sanders in particular the other day said he would do everything he could to make sure that none of the Republican candidates would ever become president.
And Hillary last night basically gave an olive branch to Bernie Sanders supporters, it felt like. She was saying, look, there is more that we agree on than we disagree on. And we were having this debate yesterday. I wonder how you see it. A lot of people feel like, look, once we know Secretary Clinton is gets the nomination, where do those Bernie Sanders supporters go? I mean, some people believe they're going to go to Trump.
Well, I mean, come on. Our voters are supporting either one of our candidates because they know that we've been through 73 straight months of job growth in the private sector, that Republican policies plunged us under the Bush administration into the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, and their candidates are talking about taking us back to those economic policies. Our voters understand that we've made progress, that preserving and protecting that progress is essential and building on it, and that would only occur with supporting either one of our candidates if they were to become the nominee. And they certainly understand, on top of all that, that you have the most extreme, and particularly with Donald Trump, misogynistic, bigoted, really outrageous candidate for president, certainly in modern times, and that's the last thing that will earn their support.
Real quick, before we let you go, Congresswoman, you've got Indiana coming, you've got California right after. What's most important? How do you prepare going into these next contests?
Well, I'll leave that for the candidates to decide. I mean, they're focused on their own strategies. While we prepare at the DNC, and we continue to prepare to support our eventual nominee and get ready for the general election, working with our state parties across the country to begin to stand up coordinated campaigns and getting ready to make sure we can push the launch button as soon as we have a presumptive nominee.
All right, we'll be watching. Congresswoman, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Debbie Wasserman Schultz there this morning on a big victory last night for Secretary Clinton.